automotive is a misconception that LLMs or large language models is equal to AI. No, LLMs are receiving a lot of spotlight because of all the funding they are getting, but they are just one piece of the larger AI puzzle. And LLM does probabilistic anticipation, not formal reasoning. So it can help you with a nice user interface in the car, a nice voice assistant. But when it comes to verification and validation for safety, that's where perception models come in, which are able to analyze a lot of data, distill insights, and take action even better than humans, right? So most car companies are using LLMs for the human AI interface and agentic AI for the system architectures. So the car architecture is a system of small semi-specialized agents, which have different functions and a master orchestrator on top of that. Yeah. The second is scaling from POC to AI at scale to realize concrete value. And there are a number of factors affecting this, which we have outlined in the white paper, and you can read for yourself as well. The third is automotive is a pretty, I would say, and relatively old industry compared to a lot of ones that we are seeing now. So the hardware, be it in French factories or in Indian factories, it is legacy, right? And when you're talking of interoperability with Industry 4.0, that becomes another challenge. And last but not least, when it comes to data privacy and security, obviously no OEM wants to put their precious, very critical R&D data on a non-sovereign cloud, right? That is very, very, very understandable. So how can India and France work together and bring their complementary capabilities to overcome some of these challenges? We have outlined a set of recommendations for government, industry, and academia, and we will quickly run through those in the next couple of minutes. So, Sarita, maybe you'd like to outline the government.
Thanks a lot, Neha. So, as I was mentioning, that the stakeholder we will have three, and one of them was government's body. So, under that, what the recommendation we have? So, the first one is launch India France AI initiative mission. That will play very important role because both countries they have their strength, where India is having a massive talent pool of AI and data engineers, and France is having a strong regulation framework, and also France have AI safety first culture. So if we bring these two things together and the strength of these two countries together with the AI initiative mission, as the challenges which Neha was highlighting, that how we will have the faster deployment of pilot to production, we will be able to make it happen. Because in India, we will have a large scale deployment environment, and that will help us to build a trusty and practical AI, which we will be able to bring with the combination of these two countries and the strength of these two countries together. Now, the second point is data and regulations. As data will play very, very important role in bringing AI, but at the same time, safety of data is also equally important. Data cannot move freely across nations, and that is where we need to bring regulations so that the data are not moving across nations. So with these two, we have the recommendation for the government. Now I would like to give it to Neha to cover under industry part.
So a lot of, I believe a lot of these recommendations from the government, if implemented as policy, actually act as enablers for industry and academia. A lot of OEMs have already, and even tier one suppliers have set up their global capability centers or GCCs in India. They need to start looking at them like innovation and co-creation hubs as an extension of headquarters and not as a back office. In many cases, that is happening already. Secondly, when it comes to interoperability through a standardized industrial metaverse between the factories and the digital twins across both countries, we could look at a Katina X like initiative, but exclusively for France and India. And on the topic of co creation, the more upstream the collaboration is between an OEM, a tier one, and then the smaller suppliers, the more we are able to use AI to bring quality and put quality gates upstream so that we achieve speed to market and innovation across markets. Of course, all this has to be enabled by a robust talent pipeline from campus to corporate. And that's where having French and Indian R&D institutes and universities exchange programs, postdoc programs, etc., to create a talent pipeline from campus to corporate that marries AI literacy and expertise with domain expertise to create what we want, what we call as day one AI ready talent is highly imperative. Yeah. So I think in conclusion, what we would like to say is that AI is not a silver bullet for all our challenges today, irrespective of the industry. But it's also not a hype, it is very much a reality. And if France and India can come together to see who owns the technology rather than who merely licenses or rents it, that will help us become a very credible third pole in the geopolitical scenario today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sanita and Nia, for this crystal clear explanation and the remarkable work that you've both done on this AI in automotive working group. Now I'm turning to both of you, Ahmed Baladi, partner at Gibson Dunn, and Lauriane Ansny, also partner, and A&O Sherman, who has both been working on the AI and regulation working group. So, Ahmed. And Lauriane, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Thomas, and just a quick word to say that it's an honor to be part of this group as a young leader, and also a contributor to this white paper. So I will try, and it's a promise that we've made with Lauriane, that although we're going to talk about legislation, we're going to try to make it simple, concrete, and not too boring, because I know know how challenging it is for lawyers to speak to the audience about these important issues. But the reason why the white paper contains that topic about AI and regulation is because we really think that the way AI is regulated will shape where innovation happens, where data flows, where companies invest, and how influence is exercised in the global economy. I think that really the rules which are now being drafted in different parts of the world will determine which region will potentially and eventually win the competition, and which ones will just have to follow. It's kind of, you know, defining the standards. So when we thought about that with the young leaders working on AI and regulation, the young leaders working on AI and regulation, we started with a simple question. If you had to develop an AI solution, where would you go? And in order to answer that question, we just conducted that comparative study between different regions, starting with the EU. So in the EU, I like to say that, and I hope there's no representative of the EU Commission, but we like to be the first to have beautiful and big legislation. To refer to another president who likes to enact big and beautiful bills. And the AI Act summarizes that. It's a highly complex legislation, hundreds of pages. Some guidelines will follow up soon. To give you a comparison, the GDPR had more than 100 guidelines and opinions, and you should expect more with the EU AI Act. The way the EU Act is working is very simple. It's a kind of traffic light system where if your product you are going to develop is red, it's prohibited. You cannot develop it, you cannot put it on the market in the EU. If it's yellow, you can proceed, but you will have to comply with very strict requirements. And finally, if it's green, that's okay, you can put it on the market, but you will have to comply with minimal rules. It sounds very easy, but the compliance cost is pretty high. And we already see companies struggling with satisfying all these requirements with other EU legislations, and we expect that with respect to the EU AI Act, it's going to be even more costly for the companies. The other challenge what we identified is that there's the cost, but there's also the speed of complying. And in a fast-moving industry, when you have to develop an AI technology, but before that, you have to ensure and demonstrate that your AI tool is satisfying a set of requirements. It takes a lot of time, and time is everything in innovation and particularly AI. So there has been a lot of criticism by the EU Commission, not by the EU Commission, sorry, by the former chair of the European Central Bank, saying that the EU is regulating in a very complex manner, and it impacts the competitiveness of the EU. So that I just wanted to give you, the kind of set the scene on where we are starting. And what is interesting, I mean, it may be interesting to look at what the EU and France is doing, but what is even more interesting is to look at how India is addressing these regulatory issues. And the big difference is that India has taken a completely different path. Instead of adopting horizontal legislation dedicated to AI or one big AI law, India is saying, let's focus on principles. Let's use the existing legislations, whether it deals with consumer protection, with data protection, and let's be flexible and prioritize innovation. So the India November 2025 guidelines has set 7 simple ideas. Build trust, put people first, innovate boldly, be fair, be accountable, make AI understandable, and keep it safe. So in practice, it sounds like a more pragmatic approach to foster innovation and to leverage the pool of talent that you have in India when it comes to innovation and AI. Just to complete that, comparative study, and we will get back to the France and AI cooperation and opportunities. When you look at all the regions of the world, the US is adopting a deregulation approach. President Trump just enacted an executive order saying it's innovation and regulation should not be in the way of innovation, and therefore anything at the federal level will just be disregarded. It's a little bit more complex because there's a fight now between the federal administration and states legislations, where California and Colorado, for instance, are trying to adopt local AI regulations, but that I will leave that aside because it's even more complex than the EU. But you can see that still the US, in order to win the race, is adopting the deregulation approach. China is different. China is more about safety and national interest, regulation on specific AI solutions like Gen AI or algorithm-based recommendations, deepfakes. So that's how I wanted to describe how the different regions, France and the EU, India, the US and China, are just trying to define the rules I was referring to, and in order for them to win the race. So where do France and India fit in this picture? France is part of the EU, of course, so it will have to operate under the rules of the EU AI Act. But I think what it makes a big difference between other EU member states is that France is also pushing hard for innovation within that framework. There is the French national data center policy, which is designed to make it easier and faster for companies to build and scale large AI infrastructure. On the French territory, France wants also to be the place where AI companies grow, where investments are being made. And it's not only about regulation. India, meanwhile, has emerged as a global AI development hub. The country has launched ambitious national initiatives like India AI to build domestic AI capacity. And what is very interesting about India is that it's just showing that scale and ambition can coexist with a flexible regulatory framework. You don't need to impose strict regulations to be successful in AI. So I think that looking at these different options and strategies, we do believe that there is an opportunity for India and France because both countries don't really need to have identical rules to succeed and to work together. They need shared values, and this is what is already happening. Both the 2024 joint statement during President Macron's visit and the 2025 Franco-Indian Declaration on AI commit both countries to safety, transparency, and inclusive governance. So for business, this matters because businesses, they hate fragmented regulations. It's highly complicated to ensure global compliance when you have different regulations applying in different countries. And if you look at the France-India partnership, we do think that that could help, to bridge the gap between strict and flexible approaches, creating what we call the regulatory alignment without uniformity. So that's the way we do believe that there is that very concrete opportunity and potential to build on the basis of India's flexible environment and also refine in France sandbox and deploy a solution that will work in different countries. So I think that's really the key takeaways that we can say here from these regulatory comparative studies is that first, regulation is not neutral. It shapes where capital flows, where talent goes, and where the next AI breakthrough will happen. Second, there is no single right model. You can choose your own path, whether it's a strict regulation, a more flexible one. I think they just reflects the culture and the trade-offs that the governments are making. And third, and most importantly, France and India don't need to choose one option. They can work together, irrespective of this different approach in the regulation, and they can combine their strength in order to create something better that could offer opportunities for both countries. So I think that that's really the objective and the different analysis we've been able to conduct. But let's talk now about concrete talk now about concrete recommendations. What do talk now about concrete recommendations? What do we need to achieve in order to satisfy and implement that strategy? And I will leave the floor now to Lauriane, who will take you through these concrete recommendations. Thank you.
Great. I hope you hear me well. So my colleague Hamed hear me well. So my colleague Hamed has just taken you on a tour, on a regulatory regulatory tour, and you can see you on a tour, on a regulatory tour, and you can see quite complex. So, ladies and gentlemen, how this collaboration between India and France take place in such such a regulatory landscape. So the question today in this forum is not whether or not we should regulate AI, but the question is really how we can facilitate collaboration between France and India. So you may well think US leaders, US companies are leading the way, and France and India are lagging behind. But we actually think that there is a huge potential for France and India in cooperating. So how Can we encourage that? So let me walk you through briefly our main propositions. First, we are convinced First, we are convinced that a Franco-Indian alliance would be a driver for normative convergence. Let me explain simply. India is one of the main development hubs. India has one of the world's largest pool of AI talent. Indian Institute of Technology Madras offers one of the top engineering programs in AI. It is recognized internationally for its academic excellence. India has also strong experience in implementing large-scale public platforms powered by AI. France, on the other hand, is Europe's leader in AI, supported by 109 billion euros in AI-related investments. Its national data center policy makes it easier and faster for companies to build and scale large AI infrastructures in France. So it is therefore very natural for the two countries to join forces and work together. France and India, as co-architects of international AI, should promote a coherent set of governance principles that would have a global impact and inspire foreign players. So to make it work, what do we need to focus on? Well, I would say we have four key principles: non-discrimination, responsible use, transparency, and human oversight. These principles are not nice to have. They are fundamental. They remain broad enough to accommodate every legal system. They don't dictate every details. They show the main directions. So for those principles to work in practice, we need drivers. And I will mention two drivers today. One, sandboxes, and two, research. Sandboxes. Joint sandboxes would allow countries to test systems together before problems arise. That means fewer regulatory surprises and trust from regulators, faster learning from them as well. Think of a sandbox of a flight simulator, like a flight simulator for regulation, basically. You don't wait for a real crash to see what goes wrong. You test together in a controlled environment. So for this alliance to work, as I said, you also need something else. You need research. So we need a strong support to research and from the research sector, and that is essential. Mobilizing the research sector ensures that the principles are evidence-based and that innovation remains sustainable. If you look at the work from Professor Philippe Aguillon, it becomes very clear. Several Indian companies have opened their innovation center in France for joint technology development, for instance, Tata Consulting Services, to just name one. And on the other hand, you have French companies like Schneider Electric, who operates in India. It has one of its 4 global hubs in India, 31 factories, and multiple distribution centers. So researchers are the architects. If you draft rules without them, you build on assumptions. And with them, you build on evidence and trust. So in summary, ladies and gentlemen, we need to go beyond differences in regulation. We need to capitalize on respective forces so that we can build a different model, a safe and robust model for international AI governance, one based on trust and mutual understanding. And this echoes very nicely further to the willingness of Europe and India to work together after the very recent adoption of the trade agreement between Europe and India. So that Franco-Indian relationship is at the heart of it. It offers a distinctive potential and has a major role to play in it. India, through its talent resources, and France, through its R&D, have major assets to compete in this race. If France and India work on the basis of strong but simple principles, using sandboxes and supporting and leveraging research, France and India will form a cohesive alliance, more efficient, more inclusive, more secure, and more resilient. It will attract foreign investment, and more partnerships will emerge. And last but not least, France and India will then be in a position to invite other countries who believe in those principles to join the alliance. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to both of you, Ahmed and Lauriane, for this fantastic work and presentation. So may I now ask to come to the floor Mr. Pratyush Kumar, CEO and co-founder of Savam AI and AI for Bharat, to draw the conclusion of this session.
Yes, yes. Namaste and bonjour. It's absolute delight to be speaking to you all at this place. Clearly, the romance between the two countries is clear from how the two leaders met yesterday and the various things that they did. No, it's clear that we are at an inflection point in the technology that we are experiencing. This is not any other small change. It's pretty significant what a post AI world looks like compared to what we had earlier, and this crosses boundaries of just technology. People actually gets into sovereignty, collaboration across countries, and so on. So in that context, France and India coming together as two very vibrant democracies, pluralistic countries coming together and doing this is very, very significant. On the white paper itself, I think it was a year-long effort. Several, I think 60 contributors across, I think 23 young leaders as well. I mean, what I found interesting was it was a broad mix of people from across policy, research, actually engineers, civil society folks, as well, etc. So I think the fact that it focused on healthcare, automotive, and regulation governance provides it the breadth that is required for such documents. But then this is a document. I think what matters is the velocity of implementation and how people take what we have identified and make it a reality. And I think that's where the strength of the French-India collaboration comes in. As the previous speaker was talking about, France has been sort of a leader in the sovereign AI motion. I think they've invested earlier, irrespective of the small news bites that came out last month. France has invested quite a bit in sovereign AI, even before it was a term. And I think India is on that path. We are now building models from scratch in India and making it happen. I think the recognition that the value loops of AI are so fast and that they need to be optimized for the local needs, need to be thought through from the needs of the people of these respective countries is very, very important. And I think in the fast-moving space of AI, on the one hand, you have the tons of money being invested. On the other hand, there is grandstanding of big tech. I think the humanizing factor of all of this is really important. human flourishing should be at the center of it. In fact, the byline of the summit is Sarvajana Hitaya, Sarvajana Sukhaya, which means for the benefit of all, for the welfare of all. And I think a sane voice like the two countries coming together and making that happen, I see as being very important. It also is a template, I think, for other countries. There needs to be leadership in the space. I see France doing that in the European Union. I think India will have an opportunity to do that as well in its neighborhood. There are problems are different, but in terms of a need for sovereignty, need for building for local interests is very, very important. As the next steps, I would at least be very thrilled to actually see some of this getting into action. If we can have a real joint pilots, which we take up across the two countries, which can take some of these ideas into reality, really have an implementation track. Maybe the Young Leaders Program can again be a facilitator of interest, energy to make that a reality, and then expand. I think we talked about healthcare, etc., but look at finance, look at education, look at agriculture in India, maybe expand our ambit to look at other sectors. That will be also very interesting. And then, of course, look at how do we measure the progress that we are making. So, in conclusion, I think I genuinely believe it's all happening too fast in terms of the technology improving. We need to give systems and institutions and countries the time to absorb change, and that's when I think some of this thinking really matters. And I think in the two countries we have a great combination of ideas. India's strength in digital public infrastructure, along with France's strength in focusing on sovereign AI, I think it's a great combination. I look forward to a lot more happening in this forum in the years to come. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So this is sums it up for today, for today's session. Thank you very much to all of you for attending. Now the floor is open to the next session. But before we leave, may I ask one last picture, group picture with also Pratyush to join on stage with all the speakers. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day here.